There's a story I always tell about the first time we were down there and how it was chaos. All the roads were broken, and there was a group of us doing medical work, and a way out in the country, and a group of us rebuilding a schoolhouse that had been reflooded, and there was a nurse, no, a doctor from Ronan, a young woman, and her translator who grew up in Idaho, but her family was from Guatemala, and her brother lived in Honduras at the time. So he lived just about 50 miles from where we were. So one night, she and the young doctor went to his house, her brother's house, for dinner. And they came back, and they're driving on this road along the flat in the southern part of Honduras. It's flat, dusty, nighttime driving. So, there's no lines on the road. The road's broken. You can't go fast. Sometimes a horse appears out of the dust, and so it's not safe driving, but they're driving, and sure enough, they come upon a truck that's been turned over in the ditch, and they pull over, and the translator starts yelling, "We have a doctor here! We have a doctor here!" And the doctor, this young woman, is feeling frightened. She doesn't have any equipment. She doesn't know what she's going to do. It's pitch black, and they run down the borrow pit, and the doctor trips on something. She doesn't know what she trips on, but she gets up and she continues following the translator over to the back of the pickup truck, where there's a crowd of people. And the translator is saying, "We have a doctor here, we have a doctor here." And the people start to laugh, because what they're doing is crowded around a cow that was hit by the truck, and they're all carving up the cow. They're butchering the cow in the middle of the night and putting the meat in plastic bags. And of course, the doctor is very relieved. She doesn't, and everybody gets a laugh, and they walk back down the borrow pit to get to the truck where her brother is waiting. The translator's brother is waiting, and the doctor trips on the same spot again. Okay, now she's not in a hurry, and she looks at what she's tripped on, and what she's tripped on is the cow's leg. Okay, the detached leg of the cow. And so the doctor says, "Well, the leg is here. The leg is here." And a bunch of people run up and start carving that up. And I like that story because you go to a place like Honduras, and with an idea of who you are and what your skills are and how you're going to use them. But the way you may end up helping is you find the leg of the cow. That may be it. And so the organization had to really be loose all the time, and to go to a place and say, "How can we be helpful?" is a harder question than it seems, because we go with the notion of who we are and what we think our skills are, and what we have to do is look at the situation and see what is needed, and maybe it's just finding that lost leg in the borrow pit. So that's the history. That's how we kind of got to where we are. Sandy?
I just discovered Honduran coffee, and I can't find what I want. It was left at the ranch. How do you like Honduran coffee, and where do you get yours?
Well, I get my coffee at the Patty Creek Market, and I mix coffee from all over the world in a bag and then grind it up. I was talking to, but whenever every year when Doris Martinez comes to visit, she comes up to every year to meet the board of directors up here. She always brings coffee from her uncle's coffee farm or something, and so I do have Honduran coffee during the time she's up here, and I like it. But I have to say, I don't know if I can tell the difference. There's a guy, who is he? Glenn. He's one of the guys who started Hunter Bay. He was a teacher at Big Sky, and I'm embarrassed I don't remember his last name, but I saw Glenn. I've known Glenn for years from when I first was like a writer in the school in his classroom. And I said, he was telling me he sold Hunter Bay. He doesn't own it anymore. And I said, he says, but I still do some work for him. I said, what do you do? He says, well, I have a kind of really a skill. He says, I can taste a cup of coffee and tell you what country it came from.
Mm.
So he's like a som, like a wine som. You could taste a glass of wine and know if it came from this valley in France or that valley in France. But he said, yeah, I can taste Honduran coffee. I can tell you the country. So that's not me.
Will you share your coffee recipe from Patty Creek?
Oh, I wish I had a recipe. It's very random. I go, I'm going to put a little of this in.
Oh, that's funny.
My mom used to come visit, and she loved the coffee I made. And then she always wanted to go to Patty Creek with me and write down what I did. And I said, Mom, I just go, whatever. I don't measure anything, and I pick different ones. So yeah.
Well, Stanley, if you want to go a little further south, I can get you a source for Costa Rican coffee.
Oh, great.
Anyone else have a question or comment or suggestion on how they can raise money here?
I have a question.
Go
Richard?
ahead, Richard.
In Vatican II in the 60s, the Pope asked churches around the world to help in Central America. And one of the members, Jim Takis, founded a mission in Guatemala, which I'm not sure how strong the connection is any longer to Missoula, to the Montana diocese. But I visited that mission, and it was doing, I thought, an absolutely superb job. And I think it's probably now passed completely into into Guatemalan control. So I'm just wondering whether there's any remnant in Honduras, because also one of my first grade nuns left my hometown in Massachusetts and went to Honduras. So I'm wondering if there's any religious groups still working in that area.
Yes. In the areas where we work, we have not had much contact with religious groups, but up on the North Coast, the religious groups are very strong. I got a phone call from a woman who runs a Christian school in the North Coast, and she wanted us to consider partnering with her in sending a medical team down, and they would do all the logistics for us. And I know Doris Martinez, our employee in Honduras, is been in contact with her about some of this hunger relief, if what kind of work they're doing and whether we can be helpful with that. What's happened a lot in Central America in my lifetime, my 42 years of going going back and forth and living in various places, is the Catholic Church has become less influential, and the evangelical church has grown hugely. So the evangelical churches are dominating in both in their presence. You see evangelical churches. You walk down the street, you hear evangelical services. And the Catholic Church has shrunk primarily, I think, because of personnel. I remember being in this little tiny town in southern Honduras, and just a little dirt road town, and we were on break from a clinic, and this woman came up and she told me she was a pastor of a evangelical church, and so she was a very thoughtful person, and we talked for a while, and I said, so what's happened to the Catholic Church? She says, they're not here. There's no priests. There's no, we get a priest every 2 months, but I'm here, and that's been a big thing through Central America. evangelicalism on the rise.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
there
my
is-
contact with church groups have been almost primarily with evangelical, because they're the ones that are there in the villages.
The other group that's grown quite a bit in Central America is the Latter-day Saints.
Yep.
Maybe more in Costa Rica than in other countries, but I know they were quite strong in Costa Rica.
Okay,
Jim?
can I ask a question? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I'm kind of curious. Do you have any experience up on the north coast there in the area called Trujillo? I had a job there in 66, cruising timber in the northern part of the coast there. And I was doing that for a company that had just opened up a plywood plant there called Louisiana Pacific. They operate here in the States. And so they wanted to know if they had enough volume for them to survive making timber there. So I spent the summer cruising their timber, and it was a good experience for me. And in fact, are you aware of that little peninsula that hangs out, that little up by Trujillo? David?
No, I don't know that part of the country. I've spent no time up on the north coast, farther, San Pedro Sula, but no farther, none of the coastal towns.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know that part of the country, but I'm fascinated by that experience of going down cruising timber in Trujillo.
Yeah.
In 1964. That must have been quite an amazing
Yeah.
thing to get to do.
It was a good learning experience for me. I spoke Spanish. I could get along. So the whole crew was from Honduras. But what very interesting, we found out that they had enough volume there. They had enough volume of timber to survive, harvesting it and taking it up to that peninsula out there. They had like 12,000 board feet per acre, which is what we have here in this country. Is enough. But the real problem we discovered is that we here in the States, we might have 12,000 board feet per acre, but it's all of one species. It's all pine or something like that. Well, down there, all that, it was divided among several dozen species of trees. And the problem was that those different species had different wood structures, and they would dry out at different speeds and shrink at different rates. So if they would take multiple different species and lay them together into plywood, they had trouble making it dry out because they would shrink at different rates and split the plywood apart. So the problem, even though they had enough volume, they'd have to learn how to separate their species and only put similar species together on their boards, which would have been a real problem. So I don't know if that company continues down there at all. It's been a long time ago. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Maritza?
I hope people don't roll their eyes at me because this always ends up being what I say. But I'll get in touch with you and maybe we can try to do some news coverage because I work for NBC Montana on your new.
You hear, David?
Yes.
On your
Okay,
new.
good.
But I also wanted to ask you because I struggle with this. I get behind a cause or a region or something that really touches and pulls at my heartstrings. And then I hear of another thing and it feels sometimes overwhelming how many people in the world need help and need support. I'm wondering how you deal with that when you hear about other disasters similar to what led you to Honduras and how you kind of separate that.
That's a wonderful question. I've never, I wouldn't say I've ever been like an idealist or somebody who thought that he was going to change the world, or I have tried to respond in a decent way to what's in front of me and what I have an opportunity to do. And I've always been really aware of my limits as a human being, and I've been a very ambitious writer. That's how I've spent most of my time, and so actually much of Missoula Medical Aid, much of when I was raising cattle, much of almost everything else I've done is always kind of the second thing I do. and the writing was the first thing I did, and so I just have thought, or what I do in my brain is I go, well, I can do this, I can't do that, and that's not been hard for me to do, maybe compared to other people. I don't know. I think that one of the things about going to another country and trying to help, or trying to be helpful in anything, is you kind of realize quickly, people say, oh, you're such a great guy, you do all this, but really you realize how selfish you are, or how easily you can draw lines. and that's what I'm very aware of, how easily I can draw lines. We don't have enough to help that person, we have enough to help this person. And boy, we've done that a lot of times in Honduras. We just and for some reason that's not very hard for me, maybe because I am a selfish person, I know how to do that. But so I used to come back from the trips and people would say, oh, you must feel so great about your work. And I always felt just okay, like I did what best I could, and which was not that great sometimes. It was just and I'm okay with that feeling, though. And maybe that's partly what allows me to do the work. um, I'm not looking for a feeling of, well, I help everybody, or we help everybody, or we're changing the world. No, we're just doing what we can, and that has helped me keep my balance, I guess. And uh, I've seen people who are quite idealistic, and maybe the rest of you have had this experience in your life. Young people who are very idealistic turn cynical the quickest. Um, because the world does not accord to their vision, and before they're old, they're cynical. And I never was that idealistic, and so I avoid the downside of running into my limits, and running into what um, the limits of what I can do. So yeah, the world's a sad place, and there's so much suffering, and I think it's where all of us are called, in whatever way we have access to try to be kind and decent and generous, and that's okay. That's good. That's a good thing. Um, I hope that helps.
What's your email address, David?
Um, my personal email is dacates at the letter q.com, just q.com. So
Thank you.
dacates. Yeah. If Eugene, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm reminded of an apocryphal story told by a teacher that I knew where I used to teach. He said two people were walking down on a beach along the ocean, and some wave or tidal force had stranded tens of thousands of starfish on the beach. And unless the water came up, or unless somebody threw them into the water, they would all die. So this guy was walking down the beach, and he'd pick one up and throw it in the water, and go to the next one and throw it in the water. And his friend said, why bother? I mean, you can't possibly make a difference, because look, there's tens of thousands. And the man said he picked up a starfish and said, see this one? Threw it in the ocean and said, I made a difference for that one.
Yeah.
This man that told me that story, they've adopted about a dozen children, many of them from Ethiopia.
Uh-huh.
So we can't save the whole world, but if we can save any part of it, that's to be commended.
Yeah. I think that's most people want to be helpful, and most people want to generous, and most people want to help those who are suffering in an acute way, and we don't, and we just want to know how. We just want to have a way that we can trust it actually does some good, and that's what we're all kind of looking for.
Lynn, do you have a comment, question, or are you just exercising your hand?
No question.
No question? Okay.
No.
She was exercising. I saw the arm go up, but she was exercising.
Very good.
I'm glad you think so. I always thought that was a good one. Yeah.
Okay, well, David, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And good luck. I think it's important that you're in the right place at the right time to help at least some group of people.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you all for listening, and it was just a pleasure to see all your faces. Wish we could be there in person, but this is seeing all your faces down here in my office where I usually see nobody's face is lovely.
We owe you a breakfast, David.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sandy.
As soon as we get organized here.
Before everyone gets off, I wanted to share a fun story with you. I interviewed the CDC director yesterday, and when we were waiting for the interview to start, he said, I went out to the University of Montana in my sophomore and junior year of high school on a scholarship, and I went down and played in this lovely little city band, my trumpet, down in one of these parks under these pavilions for a couple summers. And I thought that was kind of cool that the CDC director played in Missoula City Band in the 60s.
Yeah,
So I just
Yeah.
wanted to share that with you guys.
thanks.
Fossil? Hey, Fossil? Are you there? Are you fossilizing? Yes. Will I get to see you tomorrow around 9 o'clock at the golf course? Booties? Booties? What are booties? What's a booty? It's going to be raining or something, or what? Okay.
I think we should let Jack know that Jack Chambers know that Jack Puckett is blaming him for some of his stories.
Oh, by the way, Jack Puckett, are you there?
He's there.
I see on your shirt you have a little emblem. It looks like a tree. What is that emblem for? You know, what company are you representing?
You have to unmute, Jack.
I can't hear you.
Jack Puckett, you have to turn off your mic, turn on your mic. There you go. Now,
Oh, good.
Is that better?
that's
There we
better.
go. So what's that emblem on your shirt?
It's a deal for the state park, Travelers Rest State Park.
Oh, Travelers Rest State Park.
And then they gave us a new name tag too that has a magnet
Okay.
holds it on. That's sure better than a pin.
So that's at Lewis and Clark State Park there in Lolo.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, that's,
I thought it was a competitor for me. I got a tree on my shirt too.
yeah, this is just, that's a state, well, it's just for it says a volunteer for the state park.
Hello. I thought I might tell a story that might be of interest to at least David. Right across the street from the Catholic mission in this little Guatemalan town, there was in fact an evangelical mission. And they had lights and music until 10 o'clock every night. I don't know what they were doing over there, but they were having fun.
Yeah.
What are the upcoming programs?
Hold on a second. Next week, Bill Lawrence has invited Karen Henderson, who runs the Mali program at the university. And the week after that, Lee have invited Jory Dellinger to talk about scouting in 2020 or something related to that. And after that, I need your help to try to identify some possible speakers. So anyone who has any ideas or thoughts, please let me know, or